2025 is shaping up to be quite the year for book lovers, and I have my eye on 10 books in particular that have piqued my interest. I am primarily focusing on reading books on my shelves, but I couldn't help getting a little bit distracted by these ones. Let's get into the list. So first up, and to be published in only a few weeks on the 25th of January, is a book called Aerth by Deborah Tompkin. So this looks like it will be quite a speculative novel with some sci-fi elements, with a real commentary on our climate and how humans impact the climate and how we tend to ruin things rather than allowing this lovely symbiotic relationship that we should have with our environments. What is the plot? Our protagonist is living on a planet called Aerth, A-E-R-T-H. This planet is moving into an ice age and essentially becoming uninhabitable. So our protagonist decides that he wants to become an astronaut and to be able to travel to other planets. Another planet named Earth, U-R-T-H, is discovered. He moves there and essentially it's quite an idyllic setting, quite a nice place to live. But as time moves on, once again the same problems crop up where it becomes overcrowded and maybe not the best place to live. This is definitely going to be a story that focuses on climate and migration, conspiracy theories and interplanetary homelessness. I feel like this one is very timely considering the climate disasters that we have been having lately. I imagine that this book will have many stark analogies here that juxtapose our own Earth. The author definitely made a very conscious choice to call these planets Earth, but just spelled differently. So it is very much going to be an on-the-nose commentary with these alternative Earths. I am very much looking forward to picking this one up sometime soon. Next up then, we have a little bit of a fantasy, and the book that I'm talking about is a book called Blackwood's Blue Sky by Eowyn Ivey, and that book is due to be published here on the 4th of February. So this one is yet another Beauty and the Beast retelling, and pals, there's something within me that just can't get enough of these tales. We'll probably have to take that one to my therapist. We follow Birdie and she is just about keeping things together. She lives in Alaska with her daughter and she works in a roadside diner. Things are not going the best. She's struggling quite a bit, but she's making things work. One day, Birdie's daughter goes missing and a man finds her in the woods and brings her back to Birdie. And so begins this adventure where Birdie and this man become quite close and ends up moving to a cabin in the woods with this man. It feels like it will be very much a story about survival, about homesteading, about trying to survive against the odds in a really tough environment. I remember reading The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna a few years ago. I loved this setting of rural Alaska, particularly in the winter, and it's a setting that I would really like to return to. This one does seem to be quite a lot more fantastical, but I'm looking forward to it nonetheless. And then a book that is due to be published on the 13th of March, and this book is The Antidote by Karen Russell. So I have never actually read anything by this author, but this time I had to sit up and take notice when I came across this synopsis. Again, we have a bit of a speculative novel and it just feels like such a fresh perspective and something new that I haven't heard of before. So we're set in a fictional American town called Oz and we follow a prairie witch, and this prairie witch spends her days receiving people and they tell her their stories, their secrets, their insights, and when you tell your secrets and your stories to this witch, they will enter her mind and they will leave yours. I've seen this described as a gripping Dust Bowl epic. So plot-wise, when the Black Sunday storm arrives, it vaporizes every memory stored within this antidote. Our prairie witch is in a little bit of trouble because if anybody finds out about this, her life will be in danger. So this is something that just sounds really unusual and really fresh to me, and it's a book that I'm very much looking forward to picking up. Next up then, we have a non-fiction, and if you've been around a little while, you know that I always aspire to read more non-fiction. Well, when I saw this one, a book that is due out on the 20th of March, I definitely sat up and took notice. I'm talking about a book by John Green, and this book in particular is called Everything is Tuberculosis. I think John Green probably needs no introduction. He is the man of The Fault in Our Stars fame. He wrote a a non-fiction book that I absolutely adored called The Anthropocene Reviewed, where he wrote essays where he spoke about different elements, different facets of life, and basically rated them. But it was written in such a profound and insightful and almost melancholy but yet joyous way, and it was just a book that I wound up really loving. And so of course I'm going to pick up his next non-fiction, which is this one. So John Green was in Sierra Leone and he met a young man named Henry Reeder. They became friends, and ultimately John Green really became an activist for increased access to treatment and a wider awareness of healthcare inequities that allow this disease that is actually so preventable, so curable, so treatable to somehow be so deadly still, killing over 1 million people a year. So John Green tells Henry's story, but it's interspersed and juxtaposed, woven between social and scientific and historical stories about tuberculosis and how tuberculosis has actually shaped our world and how our choices going forward will shape the future of tuberculosis. So this sounds like something that will be really insightful and heartfelt. Honestly, any non-fiction by John Green I am going to pick up. Next up then we have another fantasy. So on the 13th of May, The Incandescent by Emily Tesh is due to be released. So we follow Dr. Walden, who is a teacher at a magic school in England. So I am thinking academia, possibly a little bit cozy, I'm not quite sure. This teacher lives a quite mundane life in spite of the magic. Her days consist of long meetings that could probably have been an email, we've all been there, and she teaches A-level invocation to 4 young students while also trying to protect the borders of the school. If you know me, you know I like fantasy books set within scholarly environments, so this definitely sounds like something that might be up my street. It does sound quite silly and light, but I do believe it is to be quite dark as well, if not a little bit scary in parts, judging by early reviews. I'm really excited and intrigued to pick this one up because, as I've said, I have an idea of the plot, but I feel like I don't really know the vibes of this book or the mood, but I don't care, I'm going to pick it up anyway. Next up then is one of my most anticipated books in this whole list, and probably just one of the most anticipated novels of the year in general, and I'm talking about The Emperor of Gladness by Ocean Vuong, which is due to be released on May 15th. I reread On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, which was Vuong's debut novel. Vuong is first and foremost a poet, and you can tell within this novel it was so poetic. The language was so lyrical. I felt like the language was as important as the plot of this book. I read it once and gave it 3 stars, and I feel like this was very much a case of right book, wrong time, because when I reread it, something about that novel really hit me, and it ended up being the only book that I gave 5 stars to in 2024. So of course I'm really excited for this next novel by this author. So this novel is described as a really big-hearted novel about chosen family, unexpected friendship, and the stories that we tell ourselves in order to survive. We're following a young man, I believe that he's 19, and he ends up meeting and becoming friends with an older woman who is living with dementia. He ends up becoming her caretaker, and they develop a life-changing and unaltering bond. I am so ready to have my heart broken with this one. It just sounds incredible. The next book up is due to be published on May 22nd, and this book is called Book of Guilt by Catherine Chidgey. So this is yet another speculative dystopian sounding book. We follow 3 brothers who happen to be triplets, and we're in England in 1979, so there's a slight historical element to it as well. I can't believe I'm saying 1979 is historical. They are residents of a secluded home, which is essentially part of a government scheme. These brothers live out their days under the watchful eyes of Mother Morning, Mother Afternoon, and Mother Night. The boys don't really know what's going on. They have their nightmares recorded in the Book of Dreams. They have their lessons taken from the Book of Knowledge, and their sins and their mistakes are recorded in the Book of Guilt, which is of course this book's namesake. The boys really aspire to be sent to a place called the Big House, which they see as this really idyllic place and somewhere where they can be happy and live out their days together. But then things begin to unravel a little bit. The boys start to find out a bit more about this world and about their situation, and dark secrets begin to come to the fore, and and they end up questioning everything. I have no idea where this book is going to go, but it sounds again like a really interesting premise, something really new and fresh, and I very much look forward to it. Next up then is a book that I believe may have been on my most anticipated books of last year. Let me explain. So the book I'm talking about is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana, and the current release date I believe to be the 15th of July. But I think initially this book was supposed to be published last September and the date was moved to this March, but now it seems to be in July. Hopefully I get it sometime soon. I'm really excited for this book. So I read The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by this author, I think the year before last. I fell in love with it. It was so cozy, so cute, so lovely, and it was very much right book, right time for me. And I just want more of this world. So in A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, we follow a young witch and her great aunt has just passed away, so she uses her magic to bring her back to life. As a result of this, I believe she loses her magical powers and winds up having to help her great aunt to run this inn. It sounds like it's going to be really cozy. It sounds like it's going to be just great. Our protagonist apparently is quite unsettled and really wants to get her magic back, so I'm looking forward to this one. If it's anything like Irregular Witches, then I know I'm going to love it. Next then is a novel that is again one of my most anticipated books of this year, and it's due to be published on the 28th of August, and it's a book called Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. I feel like this author once again just absolutely needs no introduction. She has been a bit of a genre bending, really popular for a particular reason author, very much in the forefront of what's happening in the literary world of late. So my first exposure to R.F. Kuang was the Poppy War trilogy, and I loved it. It's a series that is very close to my heart. Her following books, Babel and Yellowface, didn't quite do for me what the Poppy War did, so I'm really excited to see her return to her fantasy roots. So apparently katabasis is an ancient Greek term that references a literary account of a journey into the underworld and essentially a descent into the lower realm of existence. And ultimately I do believe that this is what this story is actually about. We are set in a school or a college and we follow two academic rivals. Our main protagonist believes that she is responsible for having one of their advisors sent to hell, so the two of them go to bring him back. It sounds like it is going to be a bit of a wild ride, and I am very excited to read this one. I have no doubt that it won't be quite as straightforward as it sounds. I think as we've come to know and love from this author, there will be quite a bit of political commentary, and I'm really excited to see where she goes with this one. And then last but not least, we have a novella set in a world that I have loved and also been a little bit meh about. So I'm talking about Samantha Shannon and a book or a novella called Among the Burning Flowers that's due to be published on September 11th. So we are back into Samantha Shannon's Roots of Chaos series. We started out with The Priory of the Orange Tree, and then we got a prequel that was set a long time before Priory, which was called A Day of Fallen Night. So I loved Priory, really enjoyed it. Wasn't as enamored with A Day of Fallen Night and thought that potentially I might have been done with this world, but now Shannon's coming along with a novella that is a direct prequel to Priory, and of course I have to pick it up because I loved Priory so much. I believe, now don't hold me to this, that this novella will be illustrated as well, which is really exciting. I love illustrated books and I can't wait to pick this one up. I can't wait to see this world through an illustrator's eyes, especially guided by what Samantha Shannon really believes this world looks like, because I have a whole idea of it in my head and it'll be interesting to see how that matches up. Those are 10 of the books that I'm really looking forward to that are being released this calendar year. Let me know if there are any of these that you too are looking forward to, or if there are indeed any releases that I haven't mentioned that you're really excited about. Let me know down in the comments below. So pals, I hope you're well. I hope you're taking care. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see a lot more from me. And of course, I'll talk to you next week in another video. Take care. Bye bye.